Good morning, dear viewers, and welcome to Maritime Africa Live. Today, we are going to discuss about a very big issue in the maritime sector, corruption. And we will particularly discuss about a great job that he's been doing, and that has been done in Nigeria that has improved a lot maritime efficiency in different ports in Nigeria. And to discuss about this, I have with me one of our latest partners at Maritime Africa, Mr. Soji Apampa. Good morning, Mr. Soji.
Good morning. Bonjour.
Bonjour, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Very well.
Okay, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. Please, can you introduce yourself to all our dear viewers?
Okay, I'm Soji Apampa. I'm one of the founders of the Integrity Organization, which also gave birth to the Convention on Business Integrity. And Convention on Business Integrity are partners in Nigeria and on the West Africa work of the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network. So we are a good governance, anti-corruption, research, advocacy, consulting organization.
Thank you very much. So, tell us a little bit about the story behind the creation of CBI.
Well, like I said, CBI was given birth to by Integrity. So, in the founding of Integrity, basically, I was challenged by the Swedish ambassador at the time. I was in Nigeria representing a Swedish company, and he kept asking me, "What are you doing about Mr. Abacha?" That was during the military rule. And I said, "But what can I do?" And he said, "Think of something. Think of something. I'm sorry for your children and your children's children if young people like you don't do something." And this is what took me to my lawyer. I joined with forces with my lawyer to create Integrity Organization at the time, just to get the old man off my back. But as time went on, and I discovered that really there was a big problem with corruption, hampering business, and so on, I decided to take it very seriously. That was in 1995 that we started Integrity. But in 1997, our private sector project was called the Convention on Business Integrity, much as you have United Nations conventions that people sign up to. And that was the idea behind it, that let's get businesses who are working in Nigeria but are not part of the corruption to sign this declaration that they're not part of it, and let us design standards that they can uphold to show they're not part of the nonsense that's going on. Anyway, that is how, in the end, we found that the private sector was too scared of being associated with anything that looked activist, and therefore we had to spin off the Convention on Business Integrity as a standalone organization. And we ended up with two organizations, one of it that the private sector can join, which is the Convention on Business Integrity. So that is how CBI, as it's shortened, was formed.
Okay, so initially it was to fight corruption in the country, but how do you, at a point in time, decide to go into maritime corruption?
Okay, so for us, it's to deal with corruption and all the types of corruption that hamper business. So, all types of corruption and all sectors, wherever it's found. You know that in terms of trade, the maritime sector represents, at least through the seaports, about 80 to 90% of all trade that countries do goes through their ports. So it's a very important aspect for the private sector. So when we were asked by the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, MACN, to represent them in Nigeria, of course we accepted to do that. We were already involved with their project as trainers on the corruption risk assessment that was done by the Technical Unit on Governance and Anti-Corruption Reforms, a government body in Nigeria, and the UNDP. We were trainers on that. And we were also asked to help train public officials on professional ethics. We trained 1,000 public officials. So all of these things were requests that came before MACN said, why don't you represent us in Nigeria? Which then got us deeper into the workings of the maritime industry, particularly since 2015.
Okay. So you were talking about MACN. Can you tell us a little bit about this organization?
Yes, they are the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, based out of Denmark. Basically, the group was formed as a response to the UK Bribery Act coming into force. Now, the UK Bribery Act, for those who don't know, creates a special offense which no one had ever seen before that act, which is failure to prevent bribery. So failure to prevent bribery became an offense under that, which means that if you are a shipping company with offices in London, or you transact with British pounds, or you do other things that bring you under the jurisdiction of that law, if your agents in a place like Nigeria were to get involved in bribery, you could be prosecuted in the UK for it, and as part of the failure to prevent bribery. This was unprecedented, and a number of about 8 companies came together in the shipping sector to try to find a collective answer to what they considered to be a major threat. And this is what has grown into the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network that you see as a global network today. Today, they represent about 50% of all tonnage by sea, and also 75% of all containerized goods moved by members of the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network. So it is a formidable force in the maritime sector that any government would listen to, really.
Thank you very much for this answer. So you were training people in the maritime sector, and
Yes.
then MACN asked you to become their representative in Nigeria. From there,
Yes.
how did you go about the whole thing practically to fight against maritime corruption in Nigeria?
Okay, so like I said, the project began earlier, and it began already in 2012. It began with the training of risk assessors, corruption risk assessors, who would go around the ports in Nigeria to identify the risk areas, risk processes, and so on. So we were involved at that point as trainers. But the project, therefore, having taken on that risk study, one of the integrity plans that were devised in order to deal with corruption was the need to reduce the number of signatures, for instance. In the early days, as much as 150 signatures were involved in getting a vessel in and out of the country. There were overlapping functions between different government departments. The government departments were working in silos. They were not working together. So this led to encouraging the government departments themselves to write out standard operating procedures, and also to sit with each other to remove the overlaps and the duplications in their roles and functions. And that was achieved by them. But then the private sector asked the important question that, okay, now we've got these standard operating procedures. We know what we're supposed to prepare for when we're coming to a port in Nigeria. But what happens if an official doesn't follow the process? So they also devised a grievance reporting mechanism. And flowing from that grievance reporting mechanism was a consequence management framework, which is what happens to someone who refuses to do the right thing. Because the whole mantra of the project was to do the right things and to do things right. That's why we had the standard operating procedures, the grievance reporting mechanism, and now this accountability mechanism from government. It's the government of Nigeria, I want to emphasize, that took on these reform elements and made it happen. But everything happened in collective action, in that there were people from business, there was civil society, and the government departments working together to shape the project. So the accountability mechanism, which today is called the Port Standing Task Team, enables government to supervise what is happening in the ports and deal with those who are refusing to comply with the arrangements, the standard operating procedures. Those operating procedures were then further simplified into something called a Nigeria Port Process Manual. So the Port Process Manual is the abbreviation of all of these standard operating procedures. And the PSTT, the Port Standing Task Team, comprising of the Shippers Council in Nigeria, the Ports Authority, the Department of State Services, and the ICPC, they are the ones who then ensure compliance with those standard operating procedures.
So it all started with standard operating system.
No,
Then
it started with a risk assessment.
Okay,
The risk assessment showed a need to improve the operating procedures.
Procedures, yes.
Yes.
Then grievance reporting mechanism.
Yes.
Accountability
mechanism. Yes.
Mechanism. Okay, good. But during all this work, for how long have you been? How long did it take to go from risk assessment to the Port Standing Task Team?
It took a number of years, and it's important to put it in context.
Okay.
Initially, of course, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So the research, the corruption risk assessment was done 2013, and by 2014, there were integrity plans, which is the remediation. How do we ameliorate the situation? How do we improve our findings? How do we deal with our findings? Yeah. So, but by 2014, it was already season for politics. A new government came in 2015, not much happened. Then 2016, everything resumed again. Now, 2016, we started to train the officials in the ports. From the training, it became clear that there is no concept of compliance. So we started to advocate together with MACN to have the government take compliance seriously as a function. It's not just enforcement, it's compliance, which means you need to prevent. And you also need to detect non-compliance, not just punish after the fact. Mm. So all of those things were then introduced. Now, by 2019, And 2020, that's when we now had the port standing task team, when the government understood that this was a necessity in order to reduce the levels of corruption. Why? Because in 2019, we wrote to the presidency, another election year, by the way. We wrote to the presidency again to say, yes, thank you, you've done the standard operating procedures. Thank you, you've done the grievance reporting mechanism. However, the cases of corruption are still too high. In fact, we had the highest number of demands for unreceipted cash payments in 2019, which was 266 incidents. So we had to write to the presidency and say, please, people are not doing the right thing because there's nobody to make them do the right thing. So then they started doing sting operations and catching those who were doing the wrong thing. And that sent signals into the system. And by the next year, the cases dropped to only 128. The year after that, 84. After that, 48. After that, 45. And now this year, we have to see where it's going. But it continued to fall year on year because of that accountability mechanism that the government put in place. And in 2020, the government also simplified the standard operating procedures by issuing this Nigeria Port Process Manual, which is pictures of processes showing you which government departments are involved, how long each process should take, what you're supposed to do. And that really helped. So the Port Standing Task Team was then asked to supervise compliance with that document. And we started to see the changes from 2019 to 2020 and so on. So by 2022, the help desk that we had created for the industry, so captains can ask for help if they're being asked for unreceipted payments, that help desk was the first of its kind anywhere in the world. And the Basel Institute of Governance in Switzerland and other stakeholders adjudged it outstanding achievement in collective action, for which Nigeria was given an award. And we had the we had the good fortune of presenting this to the presidency, because we said if the presidency had not responded to our requests for certain things to be done along the journey, the change would not have taken place. Carlos?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, so can I have an idea about the figures last year?
So last year, I said it dropped to 45 cases.
45.
2019, we had 266 cases. Last year, we had 45 cases.
That is a very good job that you've done over there. So
Yes.
I want to know, all this is about vessel clearance, right?
Yes.
Okay. And yes. Are there some impacts on the whole maritime sector, all this fighting against corruption?
Yes. Let me give you a tangible one, starting from even from the vessel clearance.
Yeah.
Before, vessels arrive at anchorage, and it may be 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours before they can get to berth. Today, because of those standard operating procedures and the NPPM, it is guaranteed 90 minutes. 90 minutes, you can start your business. That's a big change. Yes. Okay. Now, on the land, one of the reference terminals that I like to talk about, AP Merla. AP Merla used to process about 120 containers a day. Today, they handle between 230 and 240 containers a day, following strictly the Nigeria Port Process Manual. So it also, on the cargo clearance side, it led to changes. Now, how did Nigeria achieve the dropping of that time? It's because they insisted on joint inspections. So like on the vessel boarding and rummaging, where Nigeria insisted on joint boarding of the agencies and also put strict timelines that the agencies can't spend more than 90 minutes on board. It did the same thing also with the inspection of cargoes, that they have to inspect jointly. So you don't have a situation where other agencies have inspected, everybody's waiting for customs. Or customs has inspected, they're waiting for other agencies. No, they all inspect together. And that way, they improve the efficiency through this. And that came out of the corruption risk assessment. And that also then spilled out into the port corridor, because now you have more containers being released from the ports. They also had to dismantle all of those checkpoints within a certain radius of the port gate to ensure that there was free flow of traffic outside the ports as well. So the benefits, yes, started on the marine side, but came on the land side, and even outside the ports, we saw the benefit of reducing the corruption.
Okay, thank you very much. We can see that fighting corruption can help a lot our ports in Africa to improve their efficiency. But before we continue, I would like to share a video of CBI with all our viewers, and we come back to continue our discussion.
Pleasure to welcome you to this conference to talk ways of
African countries are already practicing the blue economy, but they're not doing it without.
The responsibility rests on the Nigerian Maritime and Traditional Safety Agency.
Okay.
There is the issue of marine biotechnology. You have those who do desalination,
Welcome back. We are on Maritime Africa Live talking about fighting against maritime corruption, the Nigerian miracle. And we have seen that there is a lot that have been done, and all this work done on fighting maritime corruption has improved maritime efficiency in different ports in Nigeria. But I would like to know, in how many ports have you been working?
Okay, so it's all Nigerian ports and terminals. So even the offshore terminals are included in this project. So
okay.
Even the oil terminals, 120, 200 nautical miles off the coast of Nigeria are involved. And here is the magic. The magic is that the industry used to tell us that they were spending, apart from normal costs, they were spending as much as $150,000 per visit in unreceipted payments and all of these other funny payments. Today, the average is down to $20,000.
Oh.
Now that is a great magic for the private sector.
Yeah.
It used to take them 7 days, 9 days to resolve a dispute. You understand? If they say, if the official says, no, this stamp is wrong, or that is wrong, it could take 7 days. And remember, the vessel could go off charter. A lot of costs daily incurred as a result of it. But today, such things are resolved within 2 to 4 hours while the vessel is doing its normal business. So it's a huge difference. And the captains who used to come to Nigeria before these changes took place are now saying that this is magic. It's pure magic. What has happened here in Nigeria.
That's why they are talking about the Nigerian miracle.
Precisely. In fact, those are the words, the Nigerian miracle, that they don't believe that this is possible. But yes, it has happened, and it has been sustained 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, and we're now in 24. So we keep encouraging our government to keep the reforms going.
So you always talk about the government. Does it mean that without the government, you couldn't have done all this?
Without the government, it would have been impossible.
Oh.
Impossible. You can never achieve anything. Why? Customs is the government. Immigrations is the government. Port health is the government. Drug law enforcement is the government. Quarantine is the government. All of those agencies are government agencies. So if they do not agree to do things right and do the right thing, you can never. It doesn't matter how many placards you carry, how many people are shouting. If the government does not cooperate with you, you cannot get any progress. That's why we always give the thumbs up to the Nigerian government.
So was it a big challenge to get the government involved in all this process?
Yes and no. It wasn't a challenge initially in the beginning. Why? Because Nigeria and Nigerians know that there is a problem. You understand? Nigerians are the first ones to say, oh, this is corrupt, that is corrupt. Nigerians are not shy about talking about the problem. So when MACN approached the Nigerian government, they did not come with an accusation. They came with an offer of partnership. That we know we are also part of the problem. Because, you know, vessels come into port. Oh, my old friend, it's good to see you again. I brought you this cigarette. That is the standard behavior. So you cannot, the private sector cannot say, I'm not part of the problem. So the private sector in this case said, we are part of the problem, but we need to solve it. Can we partner with you? And the government liked the approach and said, yes, we will partner with you to do that. Now, you know, I said yes and no. Because then after a while, it wasn't understood. So what's the role of this CBI and MACN? Are they here just to make us look bad? Are they here to steal all the credit for the work we are doing? Because without government, it cannot change. You understand? So it took some time for the relationship to show that all we are here for is to promote their advancement, to promote their goodwill, to draw good attention to the good work that they're doing. And anytime they are stuck as a government department looking for resources, we also used our networks to reach their bosses and to reach the presidency, to encourage the presidency to prioritize what they are looking for. So we became a trusted partner, a trusted advisor, and then things started to move much better. But you know, every 4 years, there's a change in government and people get moved around. So we are always having to go back to show ourselves, to prove again to a new set of people that we are not the enemy, we're actually your friend, and this is what we can do for you, this is how we can help you, and so on. So
Okay.
it's constant engagement.
Okay. Beyond securing the government, okay, the political part of it, what does it take to push all the public sector, the private sector, and all the stakeholders to collaborate together?
The first thing is you must do your own homework before you approach anybody. And the first bit of homework is a stakeholder mapping. You've got to identify who the stakeholders are,
Yeah.
what makes each stakeholder tick, and what will incentivize each stakeholder to continue to be in the relationship. So, because if one stakeholder says, what am I even doing here? I'm not benefiting anything, makes no sense. Next meeting, they will not show up.
Yeah.
They'll just walk away.
Mhm.
So it's helping each party to understand what is in it for them. How do they benefit? How does their department benefit? How do they, as public servants, benefit from this? How does the government benefit? How does the country benefit? How does business benefit? How does the public benefit? You must have all of these answers readily so that you can explain to any party that is asking and encourage their participation.
Okay. So I see now. How was it easy for you um, to put across all this to the general public?
No, it was not easy. And I dare say, even today, not everybody in the general public is fully aware of what we've been doing. It was good that in the case of Nigeria, the Nigerian Shippers Council was our first partner for MACN and CBI. So even if we were having difficulties, they also could speak to other counterparts in government. So it's good to have an ally inside government, at least the government department that you are working with. Now, the Shippers Council has a radio program and a television program.
Okay.
So regularly, we went on that radio program to explain to listeners the work that Shippers Council is doing in this area, the work that the Ports Authority is doing, the work that other government agencies are doing. And as they were hearing it, then they were also feeling a lot more confident about the relationship. So using communication, such as we're doing now, yourself and myself, this is a very important activity to help people understand what it's all about.
Good. So now you've done so much, and I want to ask: is there something else is there other challenges you are facing over there in Nigeria?
Yes.
Or are there some things which needs to be improved?
Yes, there still are. You know, I told you that every 4 years there's a new administration.
Okay.
People get posted, people get moved around.
Yeah.
So it is difficult because you have to now keep going back to make new friends and explain yourself all over again.
Yeah.
But the important thing is we want to challenge Nigeria to learn from their counterparts. For example, why is Togo so successful in stealing all the cargoes that should be coming to Nigeria that are going to Togo? Why is Benin so successful? You understand?
Yeah.
So if Nigeria does not improve its own efficiency, all these other ports, even all the way to Tema in Ghana, will continue to take cargoes that should pass through Nigeria. So now you're looking at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that has been signed. Soon there's going to be a lot of trade between the countries. Any country that does not get its trade and logistics right is going to be left behind.
Yeah.
So, and it's not only that, we also are citizens of West Africa. We're trying to make sure that the same standard can be felt across West Africa, and we're also part of Africa. So as long as Africa can show itself with the right efficiency, Africa can become competitive. West Africa can be competitive. Senegal can be competitive. Ghana can be competitive. Togo can be competitive. So this is what we are working on, because the ports in Nigeria, for the members of MACN, yes, good, it's working, but they ask us, can you help us at Point Noir? I'm having a problem in Point Noir. Can you help me? I just say, oh, sorry, I can't help you in Point Noir. Or I'm having a problem in Douala.
No.
You know, so the challenge remains continuing this kind of reform and making it popular across the globe. So
yes. Apart from Nigeria, are you saying that nothing is done in other countries by MACN?
Oh, MACN is working in several other countries. In fact, many countries. Let me start with Africa here.
Yeah.
MACN is working in Egypt. And in Egypt, some of the aspects of the help desk in Nigeria are being replicated now in Egypt.
Okay.
MACN is working in Argentina. MACN was working in Ukraine before the war. And in Ukraine, before the war, aspects of the Nigeria implementation were being replicated in Ukraine. Same thing is now happening in a port in India. We've got colleagues from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and so on, also now looking at how to replicate in their region as well. So, and right through a lot of the MOUs, MACN is engaging with some of those port state control authorities as far as the Pacific, and also in the Far East as well. MACN is collaborating with them and collaborating with many ports and authorities in Central Europe as well. So MACN is truly a global outreach today.
Okay,
yes.
But has another country has reached your level, the level that Nigeria is now, with all these processes now? Okay.
MACN talks about Nigeria as being one of the more mature places that they have worked in, because Nigeria was actually the first place that MACN started working.
Okay.
And MACN has worked in Nigeria the longest than anywhere else. That is why everything in Nigeria appears to be a bit ahead.
Does it mean that Nigeria was the place where there were the biggest case, the biggest number of cases?
The biggest problem in the world when it came to corruption in the eyes of the members of MACN was Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
In fact, they had a big debate in the beginning. Therefore, should we go somewhere else? Nigeria is a hard nut. If we go into Nigeria and we don't succeed, then we can be drowned.
Yeah.
You understand? But they decided that, no, we have to tackle the biggest problem. Of all the ports in the world, they used to have a Bonny working group. The terminals in Bonny were notorious. Okay. Today, they have dismantled that Bonny working group and changed its name to the Tanker working group. So it's now just the tanker owners, those who hire tankers and so on. Those are the ones now in that working group. But it used to be all about just one place on earth, which was Nigeria. But that is no longer necessary.
Yeah. I can understand better the expression the miracle, the Nigerian
Yes,
miracle.
yes.
So, but uh, are you confident that the reforms of the maritime industry in Nigeria will be furthered and sustained?
Hmm. Okay, let me tell you what I am confident about.
Yeah.
I'm confident that if we do not sustain the efficiency gains we have now, Nigeria's economy will suffer for it. I am
Okay.
confident that if we do not sustain the reforms that have been done in cargo clearance, Nigerian exporters and importers will suffer for it. I'm confident that if we do not keep the port corridors clear, as has been cleared through this collaboration, then Lagos will continue to grind to a stop again. We'll come into a gridlock. So there are some things that nobody wants to go back to.
Yeah.
So
So
our job is to
yeah.
remind the key stakeholders that this is how it happened. This is how the problem was solved. Please don't let it go backwards.
Okay.
And then,
So
because they also share the ambition of the good things we're benefiting, then they too will not allow it to go backwards.
to go back up. So for you, what is needed to sustain the momentum is to go back to them and remind them all the processes, what should be done, so that they should maintain it. The new officials.
Yes, we do that, although there are officials inside government who also do that. Not everybody was changed.
Okay.
But also to mention that the presidential order, executive order, that gave the order to the ports that
Yeah.
they must do things on a timely basis,
Yeah.
and the timelines must be stated to the public. It is now part of a law in Nigeria. So it's no longer just
Okay.
an executive order, it's now a law. It's called the Business Facilitation Act of 2022. Business Facilitation Act. The second thing is that this port standing task team, which was just a pronouncement by the presidency and involved the ICPC, that is now gazetted. It's now part of the administrative processes of the government of Nigeria. There is a government gazette on it now.
Okay.
So we have tried to institutionalize some of these things to make it harder for it to regress.
Good. So, are you targeting other countries in Africa right now?
Definitely, most definitely. We are targeting our champion in West Africa, Senegal. Senegal is the latest champion on the block, because to have a president that is driven, that wants to fight corruption, wants to do the right thing, they are African champions. And they are the ones, I mean, anybody working in West Africa and is not working in Senegal right now with the new atmosphere has not begun. But
Yeah.
we're also working in Ghana, which has
Okay.
already been on for about a year now. We're working
Yeah.
in Ghana, cooperating with the Ghana Maritime Authority and some others. And we have a big, big ambition to work in Togo.
Okay.
Because Togo,
Yeah.
it may be a small country, but it has a lot to teach other countries in Africa.
Africa. So
Certainly.
let's say very soon we hope that Ghana, Togo, and Senegal will get their SOPs, and we move on
Yes.
to other process in the fighting against maritime corruption.
Yes.
So, do you have any other things that you would like to emphasize before we finish this program?
Yes, that anyone who's working in the maritime sector should count themselves very lucky. Till I came to this sector, I did not know how important it was for trade, for everything that we use in our lives. It comes through a ship. Some part of it has sat on a ship at some point. as my friend Captain Menon likes to say, it sat on a vessel at some point. So it is crucial. And also the economies of Africa with developing fisheries, tourism, the blue economy is big and expansive. There's hope yet for Africa and for our development if we take this sector seriously. I'm happy and I'm proud to be part of it today. Thanks to MACN.
Thank you also for accepting this invitation. It has been a very good discussion. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that all our viewers have learned a lot also, and they can help us spreading the words about the Nigerian miracle. And we hope that we will receive you very soon in French also, so that all our viewers in Togo, in Senegal, in Benin can hear about what has been done in Nigeria.
Alors, par la grâce de Dieu, par la grâce de Dieu.
Okay, thank you very much, and
okay.
See you next time, our viewers, and very soon another program on the Nigerian miracle in French. Goodbye.